Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskrityam
Narayanam Namaskrityam
Narom Cheva Narottanam
Naram Chaiva Narottam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatam Vyasam
Tato Jamudirayat
Tato Jayamudiyaya
Nastapejya Bhadresu
Nastapaya Bhavashvetu
Nityam Bhagavata Sevya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati Utamasloke
Bhagavati Namaste
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistike.
Bhakti Bhavati Namaste.
We are reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, chapter 2, The Lord in the Heart, text 18. Param padam vaishnavamanantitat
Param Padam Vaishnavam Amananti Tadada
yaneti neti titatat uchit sava
Yaneti Neti Yata Shikshava
Vishretya daratmyam ananya savida
Vistrijya Varatmyam Ananya Sarida
Vedo pagoya rapadam pade pade.
Vido Bhagavata Padam Pade Pade
Parampadam Vaishnavanamanantitat
Param Padam Vaishnavam Amananti Tadada
Yaneti neti tityatat uchishek sava
Yaneti Neti Tiyatat Utsit Sikshava
Vishretya dharma dharatmyam ananta savida
Visrijya Daratmyam Ananya Sarvada
Vedo pagoya rapadam pade pade.
Hrido Bhaguya Padam Pade Pade
Parampadam Vaishnavamamanantitat
Param Padam Vaishnavam Amanantitat
Yaneti neti Tyatat Uchishek Sava
Yaneti Neti Tiyatat Utsit Sikshava
Vishvetya Daratmyam Ananta Sarida
Visrijya Dauratmyam Ananya Surya
Vedo Pagoya Rapadam Pade Pade.
Harido Bhaguya Padam Pade Pade Param Padam Vaishnavam Amananti Tat
Parampadam Vaishnavamanamanantitat
Yaneti Neti Atat Utsit Srikshava
Yaneti neti Tityadat Shishek Sava
Visrijya Dauratmyam Ananya Sarida
Vishvetshyadaratmyam Ananta Sarida
Harido Bhaguya Padam Pade Pade
Vedo Pagoyara Padam Pade Pade. Param Padam Vaishnavamanan Anantitat Yaneti neti Tyatadadushishek Sava Vichityadoratmyam Ananta Savidam Edo Paguyara Padam Pade Pade. Good. But for what translation? Param, the Supreme. Padam, situation. Vaishnavam, in relation with the personality of Godhead.
In relation with the personality of Godhead.
Amananti, do they know that, yet, which, naiti, not this, naiti, not this, iti, thus, atat, godless, osi shrik savaha, those who desire to avoid, visritya, giving it up completely, Dauratmyam, perplexities, Ananya, absolutely, Sarida, in goodwill, Rida Upaguya, taking them into his heart, Artha, which alone are worshipable, Padam, lotus feet, Pade Pade, at every moment. Now we have the translation and purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki. The transcendentalists desire to avoid everything godless, for they know that supreme situation in which everything is related with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, a pure devotee in absolute harmony with the Lord does not create perplexities, but worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment, taking them into his heart. So please repeat. The transcendentalist desire to avoid everything godless. For they know that supreme situation in which everything is related with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, a pure devotee in absolute harmony with the Lord does not create perplexities, but worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment, taking them into his heart. A purport. In the Bhagavad Gita, Madam, my abode, is mentioned several times, and according to the version of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, there exists the unlimited spiritual sky, wherein the planets are called Vaikunthas, or the abode of the Personality of Godhead. In that sky, which is far, far beyond the material sky, and its sevenfold coverings, there is no need of the sun or the moon, nor is there necessity for electricity for illumination, because the planets are self-illuminating and more brilliant than the material suns. Pure devotees of the Lord are absolutely in harmony with the personality of Godhead. Or in other words, they always think of the Lord as their only dependable friend and well-wisher. They do not care for any mundane creature up to the status of Brahma, the Lord of the universe. Only they can definitely have a clear vision of the Vaikuntha planets. Such pure devotees, being perfectly directed by the Supreme Lord, do not create any artificial perplexity in the matter of transcendental understanding by wasting time in discussing what is Brahman, what is non-Brahman, or Maya. Nor do they falsely think themselves as one with the Lord, or argue that there is no existence of the Lord separately, or that there is no God at all, or that living beings are themselves God, or that when God incarnates himself, he assumes a material body. Nor do they concern themselves with many obscure speculative theories which are in actually so many stumbling blocks on the path of transcendental understanding. Apart from the class of impersonalists or non-devotees, there are also classes who pose themselves as devotees of the Lord, but at heart maintain the idea of salvation by becoming one with the impersonal Brahman. They wrongly manufacture their own way of devotional service by open debauchery and mislead others who are simpletons or debauchees like themselves. All these non-devotees and debauchees are, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti, Duratmas or crooked souls in the dress of Mahatmas or great souls. Such non-devotees and debauchees are generally excluded from the list of transcendentalists by the presentation of this particular verse by Sukadev Goswami. So the Vaikuntha plants are factory, the supreme residential place called the Parampadam. The impersonal Brahma Jyoti is also called the Parampadam due to its being the rays of the Vaikuntha planets, as the sun rays are the rays of the sun. In the Bhagavad Gita 14.27, it is clearly said that the impersonal Brahma Jyoti rests on the person of the Lord. And because everything rests on the Brahma Jyoti directly and indirectly, everything is generated from the Lord. Everything rests on him. And after annihilation, everything is merged in him only. Therefore, nothing is independent of him. A pure devotee of the Lord no longer wastes valuable time discriminating Brahman from non-Brahman, because he knows perfectly well that the Lord Parabrahman, by his Brahman energy, is interwoven into everything, and thus everything is looked upon by devotee as the property of the Lord. The devotee tries to engage everything in his service, and does not create perplexities by falsely lording it over the creation of the Lord. He is so faithful that he engages himself as well as everything else in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. In everything, the devotee sees the Lord and he sees everything in the Lord. The specific disturbance created by Duratma or crooked soul is due to his maintaining that the transcendental form of the Lord is something material. Read the verse again. Parampadam Vaishnavam amananti tat yatneti neti tyatat ushshiksava Vishritshadaratmyam ananya sarida ito pahuyara padam pade pade. Translation. The transcendentalists desire to avoid everything godless, for they know that supreme situation in which everything is related with the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, a pure devotee is in harmony with the Lord, does not create perplexities, but worships the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment, taking them into his heart. Om Ajnanatimandasya Chanansana Shaka Sakshan Mulitam Yena Tasmai Shigove Namah. Chitchaitanya Manopistam Stapitam Yena Bhutalesh Kadamyam Dadanti Svapadantikam. Vandeham Shiu Shiyuda Padakam Shium Vaishnavamsha Shirupam Jagatam Saganaragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdutam Pajanasaitam Sikrishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sankanalita Shivishakam Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Tyatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namastute Tapta Kansana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanashve Vishavana Sutadevi Pranamama Hari Priye Vacha Kalaptrabhisha Kripasana Bevisha Patnam Pavanabhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namo Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namini. Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskachai Dasatani. Srila Prabhupada Ki. So we are in the beginning of the Bhagavatam. Sukadev Goswami speaks the Bhagavatam to Maharaj Pariksit, and in the beginning here he explains the ABC of spiritual life, that the basic activities of a transcendentalist. A transcendentalist desires to avoid everything godless. That because all these godless attractions, if we engage in godless activities, we are in this disharmony with the Supreme Lord. That so in Shri Upanishad, this vision of harmony is explained. That the first verse says, Om Purnamada Purnamidam, that everything comes from the Supreme Lord. And so many perfect units emanate from the Supreme Lord. But still he himself remains completely perfect. That he remains complete, although so many complete units emanate from him, but he remains complete. That, but then the next verse in Shri Upanishad explains how to live in harmony with the Supreme Lord. That so that's explained Shri Upanishad, and there that principle of harmony is explained, and that principle is called Isavasya principle. That Isavasya medam sarvam yatkinshi charatyam charattena tyaktena bunchite mahita kasya svidhanam. Everything animate or inanimate that is within this universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. That's the principle. So that's all is explained in this purport. Everything is owned and controlled by the Lord. So all this Brahma Jyoti is spiritual energy, and it's controlled and owned by the Lord. And from this Brahma Jyoti comes through Ma Vishnu, starts the creation. That the material creation comes from spirit. It's matter comes from spirit. That because Krishna is spiritual, how can something material come from him? So the material creation is also spiritual factually, but because we see it disconnected with Krishna, we see it as Maya, Krishna's external energy, and that's illusion. That's explained in the second verse of the Chatur Sloki Bhagavad Gita. Retiritam na pradyata na pradyata satmani. So it says that everything is connected with the Lord. And seeing it disconnected is material, Maya. That's interesting. But this is a Vasya principle, yeah. It said, therefore, one should accept only what's necessary for oneself, which are set aside as his quota. And one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. That is everyone in this world following that principle? Practically no one. That they create systems to exploit the material nature in so many ways. That you go to school. I think the most popular study is is to get a master's in business administration. That but what does it mean? You become a master in developing systems to exploit others and to exploit the material energy. That's what it means. It's contrary to this Isavasya principle. Although it can also be used in a Krishna conscious way, that's another aspect. That I'm not condemning that as a whole, but the basic principle in this material world is Pungche Parati Jangunan. I'm going to exploit material nature, thinking I'm the enjoyer and this is mine. And that this is disharmony. That and so therefore a transcendentalist desires to avoid everything godless. Everything godless means what's going against this Isavasya principle. This because the Srila Upanishad explains very nicely the vision how to live in harmony with the Supreme Lord. That and a transcendentalist knows that everything that disturbs this harmony will cause perplexities or difficulties in my spiritual life. And therefore, I don't want that. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami explains also first, one must control one's senses, mind and senses. And to come to that point, one must stop doing godless activities which are in disharmony with the Supreme Lord. That Atyara Payasya Prajalpa Niyamagra, Prajalpa Niyamagra, what's the next line? Atyara Payasya Prajalpa Niyamagra, Sanghotyaga Salolyam Sha, Sadbir Bhaktir Vinashati. 6 things that destroys this harmony. Atyahara, more eating than necessary, or collecting more things than you need. That prayas, over endeavoring for things which are very difficult to get. That material strife to get more and more wealth. that Prajalpo speaking about sun stratification and uh, how to expertly fulfill our lusty desire. Yamaha, not serious in your spiritual life, thinking on your own benefit and not follow the rules and regulations for spiritual advancement, but material benefit, or just not doing them. That's not good. Jhana Sangha Salam Yamshan. Jhana Sangha. Give up association with materialistic people. Salalyams, especially those who are greedy for such achievement. Satvir Bhakti, it destroys your spiritual life, it destroys your bhakti, it destroys the harmony. And this is explained here. Therefore, a transcendentalist, he avoids everything godless. And Prabhupada sometimes, especially when he arrived in California, Los Angeles or San Francisco, I don't know, but the boats were driving Prabhupada, and he saw an old man playing with balls, and he became angry. He said, why are they wasting their time? So that's always on our mind. And that should be part of our sadhana. Think about today, if you have your sadhana in the morning, if you chant nice rounds and do your sadhana nicely, then you have power to discriminate. Krishna gives you intelligence. What to do and what not to do. What's important for our spiritual life and what's secondary. What's secondary we don't do. That no necessity to do. What's important we do. That otherwise we waste a lot of time. And time is valuable in our devotional service. Time is so important. That so because if we do that, then gradually we will see how everything is related to the Supreme Lord. That so if we follow this sadhana on the instruction of our spiritual master, we will start to see that everything is related to Krishna. And Krishna just explained that procedure in Bhagavad Gita. Tat vinipanapatna paraprashna saving protection to take him ganas tat vadakshana. You approach the spiritual master, inquire from him submissively and serve him and follow his instructions. That and then in the next line it says, Gat vana puramam evan yasya sikandava yena bhutani ashani dakshasyat matiyatomai. Then you start to see what's explained is in the purport here, that everything is in Krishna and everything belongs to Krishna. That's the result of following the instructions of the spiritual master. Instruction of the spiritual master means we must take the order of the spiritual master as our life and soul. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, purport Bhagavad Gita 2:41. We should take the instruction of the spiritual master as our life and soul. But many times that's misunderstood. You think, I followed the instructions of my spiritual master, it gave me this mission, and I'm going to do that. But we forget one thing. Our spiritual master is a servant of Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada has his mission. And we as grandchildren of grand-grandchildren of Prabhupada, we must follow Prabhupada's orders and execute his mission. And that's primary. The instruction of our spiritual master is secondary in our movement. And that is very important. Ideal is that both are combined, but it's not always possible. That we see that, especially the sannyasis in ISKCON who represent Prabhupada must engage in Prabhupada's mission. It is not that a sannyasi has his own mission, the mission of his spiritual master. I'm going to, I got in the mission of my spiritual master, I developed Varnashram. And I want to become a sannyasi. But that's not appropriate. Why is it not appropriate? A sannyasi must be engaged in Prabhupada's mission and goes from place to place and helps the authorities there to do their, to help that everyone makes spiritual advancement and to give advice sometimes also to take advice. But it's not that we have our own mission, because our spiritual master said this, that it are nice instructions and we should try to do it and combine. But if it can be combined with Prabhupada's mission. But we in ISKCON, we have the identity, everyone in ISKCON has the identity of being a Siksha disciple of Prabhupada. That's our first identity. Our second identity is we are a follower of our spiritual master and a servant of our spiritual master. But the spiritual master should always be seen as a servant of Prabhupada, helping Prabhupada to execute the mission. So that's important also for sannyasis, to follow that principle. That I've seen applications for sannyas, and they come up, this is the mission of my spiritual master, and I want to execute that. And we say application refused. That is not a purpose. You are a servant of the society, of Prabhupada, his mission. And that so this is, in relation to this verse, very important. That if we follow the instruction of the spiritual master nicely, then we will get this vision that everything is related to the Supreme Lord. That and a devotee wants to bring everything in harmony with the Supreme Lord. And he knows, yes, I'm here. Why am I here? I'm a nonsense. That all those who come to this material world are nonsense. And that's humility. Coming to that point, I'm here because I want to live in disharmony with the Supreme Lord. So our first step is to rectify that and to bring everything again in harmony and avoid what brings us in disharmony. That therefore a pure devotee, he does not create these perplexities, these difficulties in his spiritual life. But he worships the Supreme Lord, the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment, taking them into his heart. And this is a very deep instructions, a basic instruction. That I saw this video of Bhakti Charamach a few days ago, and he says, if you are chanting, but your mind is wandering on so many things in this world, you are not chanting. That's not chanting. Chanting is giving attention and absorption in the holy name. It's quite a statement. That means the first years that I was chanting, I was not really chanting. My mind was so disturbed, wondering that really chanting is to be there with your consciousness, because we are the consciousness. So this is a very important principle here. One that taking the lotus feet of the Lord at every moment. Yeah, worship the lotus feet of the Lord, taking them into his heart. But to do that, we need mercy. Mercy. You need spiritual strength. And spiritual strength comes by our connection with the spiritual master, and to him as a via medium to Prabhupada. That's where the mercy comes from. The spiritual strength comes from. Therefore, it's so important to pray to the spiritual master, to pray to Lord Chaitanya for mercy, mercy, mercy. And by his mercy, we can come to that point, to becoming absorbed in the holy name. And becoming absorbed in the holy name with love, that's the first stage. Then the anartha nivritti starts, the purification of the heart. If you chant and your mind wanders on fulfilling material desires, you may get the opposite, because the holy name is Chintamani. It will fulfill your desires. But of course, if you chant the holy name, it will fulfill your desires in such a way that you may become detached very soon. It's always auspicious to chant the holy name, even if we don't fully concentrate, but the effect will be very low. That's the point. That in the purport, it is Prabhupada speaks about the Paramdam or Maddam, the Maya boat. Krishna says that. This is, yeah. In the purport first paragraph, it speaks about the nature of these Vaikuntha planets. So these Vaikuntha planets, that it is beyond this our scope of understanding this spiritual reality. That with our material intelligence we cannot understand this. That like in this chapter will be explained that one meditates on the Supreme Lord in the heart, and the size of a thumb. But that does not mean that the super soul is in the size of a thumb. It's in every atom. That this breadth, width, and length, these are material dimensions. This material thinking. But on the spiritual platform, there are different dimensions, and we don't have access to them through our brain. That's not possible. And because it like Vrindavan, it has a certain it's a certain land, stretch of land that. But we see that the form of Vrindavan sometimes it's like a lotus, and it comes down. The lotus comes down, and then it's very easy to go from one point to another. Anyway, this material thinking we think in a matrix which is from the material world, but the spiritual dimension is a whole other dimension. That it's the unlimited spiritual sky it's mentioned here, unlimited. That it's the planets are self-illuminating, more brilliant than the material suns. It is millions of times more brilliant than the sun. We cannot imagine that. So yes. Anyway, much more to say about that. I will stop here. Any questions, comments? Yes.
So engaging in corporate jobs will make us unsteady in our spiritual life. Is it so?
The
Lifestyle demands a lot of work that we cannot maintain. At times we believe in the practice of our spiritual. So what do you say about it?
That this is the nature of the material world. That if you take a job in a company, you have to abide by their rules and so on. But but we have to be inventive and arrange our life as such that we can spiritually advance. When I was in family life and I became a devotee, I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning, took a shower, and I took the car. I drove to the temple in Ghent, in Amata. It was 15 kilometers, and I arrived there around 4:30. And there was only backed up Paul and me. We were with two. and he was putting Kaunita on the altar. And I'm speaking about 92, 93. We had the whole morning program in 1 hour. We had the Gurvastakam, Shinga prayers, Tulsi prayers, and then the Guru Puja. And then we were reading a few pages from the Bhagavatam, and some japa, and around 5:45 I was going back home, 6 o'clock, waking up my wife and children, and then going to work. That I had a job. I was the head of administration in a home for retired people. That was my last job that I had. Many jobs before also. I was chartered accountant. Anyway, but I did my job, and during my job I had a lot of input of data in the computer, and I had Bhagavad Gita with me, and I was memorizing slokas while I was memorizing slokas. Just memorizing them. I learned a lot of slokas while doing that. And then, of course, the previous evening I cooked, so I had prasad with me. I was taking lunch, and then I made a walk to chant the balance of my rounds. And then in the afternoon, I was working also till 5 o'clock, then driving home. And then in the evening, I was cooking for Krishna. And I was reading Bhagavatam every evening, at least 10 verses with purport. Of 4 years, after 4 years, I read the whole Bhagavatam like that. And I was reading in the evening the Bhagavatam, because I learned from especially Vishnu Goswami, the old Swami from Gujarat, who left his body already 20 years ago now. That he was one of the first devotees I met, and he was attached to the Bhagavatam, and he was reading the Bhagavatam, chanting the slokas with so much love. And I remember I learned from him this meter how to chant, and I try to chant all the verses like that. And so that was during the week. That and in the weekend, that was special. That yeah, I was on Friday. I was in Ghent in the Namhata cooking with Bhakta Paul. We were running the Namhata center there, and he was the son of a baker. He left his body already nearly 30 years ago now. But because he had a heart deviation from birth. He left his body in the temple in Radhadesh before the deities chanting, dancing. It was on the 25th of January 1997 that he left. But he was a good cook, and we had that book of Yamuna, cookbook, and we vowed we will never cook the same thing, always different, and we learned cooking, and on Wednesday evening we went together already to a farm. They had cows, and they were not killing their cows. Very special. That not an ISKCON farm, but we got 25 liters of milk there, and then we were making cheese from it, or so many preparations for the Friday evening feast, because every Friday evening we had a small program that and yeah, so many students came. They got to know the prasad and appreciate the prasad. So many things. But and then in the weekend, on Sunday, many Bhakta and me, we drove to Radhadesh. That's about 300 kilometers one way. We had a morning program together, and then we stayed until the Sunday feast. And then from Radhadesh, we went to Antwerp, also for the Sunday feast. We had 2 Sundays. And then we went back to Ghent. So yeah, I was working, had a full-time job and quite a responsibility at work, because I was leading the administration. But yeah, that's during the day I tried my best to be engaged Krishna conscious. So we must find ways to engage us in Krishna consciousness despite all the challenges. Challenges are there for sure. But anyway, many think that they see me as someone who never married, but I have experienced a family life. And that was enough. after that experience, when Guru Maharaj gave me first initiation, the day before he called me and he asked, Bhakta, look, what about marriage? He asked me. He said, it was too painful, Guru Maharaj. And he never spoke about it afterwards. He said, if you change your mind, let me know. But anyway, anything else? Good. Thank you very much. Shanta Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
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 Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol.
Yeah.